Let's sing.
Okay, please.
We'll start learning, and then your question will certainly pop up. What's the question?
I'm fascinated by the role Yitzchak's blindness plays.
Oh, last week's question.
I mean, I'm still in that right now.
Okay.
But particularly because, Rashi there brings a number of explanations of why he was blind. And one of them is directly connected to the Akeda.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious about what is the nature of what type of blindness emerges from one's complete dedication and sacrifice. That there's just things that we can't see as a result of that experience.
Okay. Never mind.
Amen. We're missing a big chunk of people today. 4 guys in Chutz La'aretz, 1 with a sick baby.
One alone with his kids.
1 alone with his kids.
Listen to the thing.
Yeah, we're here. Ahanim zemirot v'shirim v'shirim erot nafshi tarog aniyim zemirot v'shirim v'shirim erog nafshi tarog nafshi chavamda b'tzel yadecha dat kol rasodecha nafshi chavamda b'tzel yadecha dat kol rasodecha ay So as always, our learning is timely, and as we enter into this whole new section of Bereshit with the gap between Yaakov and Esav, which becomes one of the prime archetypes of machloket in the most deep way between two twins, one father and the same mother. In a sense, Sefer Bereshit becoming so much from here on a book of machloket, of heroes, anti-heroes, and through Yaakov Avinu's life to the end of Sefer Bereshit, which is really what now becomes the focus which turns out to be for the majority of the Sefer, revolves around here him and his brother, and then his children and their relationships, and then Yosef and the brothers, and to the end of Sefer Bereshit, really coping and dealing with the issue of shalom. And as we've explored in the past, really Yaakov Avinu recognizes his task in that realm. In the beginning, is challenged by Esav to developing a world in peace between them, and rejects that, and sends Esav on his way. And then when, as we'll see in Pashat Vayeshev, when it comes to the machloket between Yosef and his brothers, so he literally sends Yosef to find shalom. Lech na u'ed shalom achecha, which really becomes the driving issue from then until the end of the Sefer, with the brothers coming back to Yosef even after Yaakov is buried, and questioning his intentions, as to whether they are towards shalom or not. So in that sense, like, this is a very very appropriate time to be learning the Netiv Shalom. It's probably not a time when it's not appropriate, but this is, at least in terms of thematically, this is very real.
Especially the way it introduces it with Mirma and Lavan.
Exactly, right, just to go back inside. So Mirma b'leiv chorshe ra reveals to us that being duplicitous is, I mean, it'd be hard to find something more internally grounded as antithetical to shalom than mirma, where the person is split from himself. Split from himself. He has no integrated personality. His expressions are not reflective of his interior, and his interior itself is really with a very, very deep question as to how much he himself is aware of what it is that he says. I mean, he says all kinds of things. Lavan says all kinds of things that you would think,
They sound good.
they certainly sound good, and you wonder whether he really believes them. He might actually believe himself as being a teller of truth. And so those are serious questions in the Mikra, like who is this individual? But what's clear for us in terms of our own the timeliness of what we're doing, the Mirma b'leiv chorshe ra, mamish, it's mamish reflection of the opposite of Yoatzei Shalom and Simcha, as we explored last time. And this actually plays very deeply into another theme that we've been present to, the Etzev and the Itzavon Yadayim that we saw in Noach, and the very primal issue in Ma'aseh Bereshis as to the Simcha, around the Simcha that was lost with the Achila of the Eitz Hadat. We seem to have lost this direct access to being Sameach, which was apparently present to Adam Harishon and to Chava, enough that the common theme of the Klala is the Itzavon. And I think we did explore with Noach and the opening up of a world towards Simcha of Zeina Chamenu, and a broadened perspective which we related back to Moshe Rabbeinu at Har Sinai, and the broadened perspective which comes not only from Har'eni Nat Hudieni Nat Rachecha, but also Har'eni Nat Kvodecha, and that whole theme will likely reemerge for us around these issues of shalom and simcha. So we began to explore some of that last time when we got into questions of language in general and the ability to communicate inner states and the severe limitations on us for sharing consciousness, sharing what we're aware of, in a way in which we can have any sense of the other sharing with us what it is that we experience. With painful limitations on our ability to join others in experience. and in a very real sense, these same powers that invest us with the presence and realness of our own selfhood are those very same powers which divide between us and make it impossible really to ever fully join with another. Almost like another element of this lahat hacherev, halahat hamitapechet, that's standing at Gan Eden, showing two sides of the same knife all the time. Is what you gain is exactly concomitant with what you lose. And so there with man losing is the breadth of his consciousness, along with simcha, which comes with that breadth of consciousness. So also losing his ability to truly be mizdaveg with his wife, and so becomes ashamed of the organs of interpenetration, and cursed with the etzev, which seems to be a direct result of that kind of particularization and separation. So that's another relevance of the theme of shalom to simcha, the ability to whatever shalom is going to mean. Clearly, it has something to do with the ability to hold together opposites and to integrate and create a oneness.
Bayit element.
And
The bayit element. Like
the element of bayit. Right. Shalom bayit. Lost in that choice. So, do you mind turning the fridge off? It seems to have gotten loud again, or maybe just because there's just a few people here. So, Shlomo HaMelech Ratzal Lomar. So now we're going to begin reading the Maharal inside, and we're going to set ourselves to try to cover this first section, in which he analyzes the pasuk and looks at the relationship between these different parts, the simcha and the shalom and the mirma and the charishas ra. Shlomo HaMelech רוצה לומר כי בני אדם אשר הם חורשי אבן והם אותם שמשלחים מדנים בין איש ובין חברו ונקראים חורשי אבן כי החורש מכין האדמה עד שתצמיח וכך מכין המשלח מדנים בין בני אדם עד שיצא הריב מביניהם. So there are people who set themselves to creating dividing lines, and not only dividing lines, but disharmony and machloket, and they're called chorshei ra. So first of all, this is a fascinating feature here. They're called chorshei ra because apparently, in order to accomplish this kind of disharmony, you need to really invest effort.
It's so counterintuitive.
Very. In other words,
Well, he doesn't say Zoreira.
Yeah,
Which is very interesting.
It's a step before Zriya.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is interesting. It's like you don't even need to do the Zriya.
You just lay the groundwork.
You lay the groundwork, and it does happen easily.
Okay, Beseder, that might be present, but my sense in what he's saying is that people who are meshalech medanim bein ish uvein chavero nikraim chorshei aven ki hachoresh mechin haadama ad shetatzmiach v'kach mechin hameshalech medanim bein bnei adam ad sheyitzeh hariv mibneihem. He's got to do something to set it in action.
Mm-hmm.
It's true that what's set in action seems to have a sort of a natural process.
An organic presence.
That's going to grow out of the ground that's been prepared. But the ground has to be prepared. In other words, something has to be put in place in order to create these medanim. And this this, I think, should recall for us our sense of simcha as being a natural state.
Yes.
I mean, it's a natural state. I mean, it's true we're witness to, the kind of mentality that creates, what's the best word in English for machloket? It's not disagreement, and it's not division either, because that's too neutral.
Disputation, quarrelsomeness.
Conflict.
See, none of conflict.
Conflict.
Okay,
Dissidence, maybe.
conflict, disharmony, dissonance. These things bespeak better than just disagreement.
It's more fundamental, yeah.
It's more fundamental. That there's a reflection here on the fact, apparently, that the natural condition is a condition of shalom, and the natural condition is a condition of simcha. And I think that there's a deep way in which that's true, in which we're familiar with it. That even though it is so that kind of dissonance that we see between siblings or in life happens pretty early on, right? Happens pretty early on. Okay, right. And nevertheless, there's a more primal essence to the nature of what is reality that is a condition of shalom. Haraya, you come from there and you return to there. It's true that in our lived condition, we live delineation and distinction, and therefore have perhaps these tendencies towards disputation and disagreement. But nevertheless, there's a more ground base of our reality, which is one of shared life, of shared existence, of shared reality, which are all the realms of simcha and shalom. So it might be that this sense that he's describing here, or that the pasuk is describing, chor she'ra, that you have to invest in order to create a machloket, might be reflective of something which has to do with that not being the natural, not really not being the natural tendency of things. It's true that an evolutionary process, like the ground of evolutionary process, is in this challenge and contest, right?
Even that's not necessarily true. I mean, this notion that evolutionary process is bound up with competition is a very solid cultural lens on evolution, because there are parallel processes of cooperation and synergy and synthesis that did not receive nearly the same attention in the 19th and early 20th centuries when early evolutionary theory was being founded, because this social context within which they were being examined was one of an assumption that competition, was
Necessary.
There's much more profound, in my opinion, later evolutionary thought that has begun to challenge. And I mean, even on a more basic level, the whole time we're speaking, I'm just thinking of our baby right now. Sally is like the sweetest, happiest baby we've had yet. And you have this, and this is why people so often just want to hold a baby.
Yeah.
Because there's a sense of participation in an equanimity.
Right.
And the joy that comes with that. And so the question, and like been tossing this around in our house, is like, how do we keep? I'm trying to use it to encourage my children. Like, everybody finds this so precious. Even our kids find this so precious. We've been throwing out well, as he gets older, and all the tools of communication, which are no doubt are bound up with the breakdown of that equanimity. Yeah. But how do we create a culture that can foster that? Thank you for that. I think it's a big myth. It's a big myth, this whole notion that evolution is bound up with competition.
You don't have to take it into a direction of competition, because the driver of evolution is not specifically competition. The driver of evolution is adaptation to challenges.
True, but my point is that the mode of cooperation is equally viable as is competition.
more than that, what we think of as an organism. I mean, like, there's not a single sovereign organism. Like even our own.
We are 70% bacteria.
Ourselves as organisms that are actually ecological communities.
Yeah.
Like a minority of the cells in what we think is our bodies are not.
Are us. Are our cells.
Our cells. I mean,
Our
yeah.
personal.
But even that, you stumbled on the language, you realize that itself is
It's
it?
problematic,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
but
was the big insight of ecology for sure, which
Yeah.
shifts the lens of competition.
That's right. That's right. It creates a synergy between parts that they themselves organize into a system of their own. And that's really, I think, the shifting perspective of self-organization, in which chaotic grounds for things have within them some embedded property to organize non-competitively into an overarching new identity that they participate in.
which is not the identity of the ego.
Right. Which is not the identity of the separated ego. Right. Which is reflective of this perspective. In other words, it may be that certain mechanisms of evolution are competitive or adaptive, which does revolve to a certain extent around machloket, right? Which is something which we're going to need to explore separately, right? Machloket is the second part of Netiv Hashalom is about machloket, right? But this kind of a perspective that whether the mechanism is competitive or the mechanism is whatever it is, nevertheless there is some underlying property which is driving things forward to more developed expression, more complex systems, and by the nature of complexity, more incorporative systems, more nested levels that those incorporative systems organize out of and develop from, all reflecting that apparently the primal drive is not the competition. That may just be the mechanism. Even that we can call into question. But rather the primal drive is towards higher and higher ordered integration and organization of systems, which then are able to achieve higher and higher levels of integrative power. The highest level of integrative power being consciousness and mind, in which one is able to integrate and incorporate vast swaths of existence in the flick of a thought. I mean, that is an extraordinary power, and when it's looked at in this kind of a context,
It's an emergent principle.
it's an emergent principle, and the highest emergent power that we're familiar with, at least, which is consciousness itself, and the ability of consciousness to gain a perspective from outside itself, of itself, in infinite, not regress, in infinite advance, farther and farther into greater and greater and broader perception. So when looked at it that way, so the mechanisms really might be machloket, divisiveness, competition, survival, and even they might be called into question.
And those are colored by the perspective of the observer.
Fine.
Yeah.
But all that then becomes mechanisms for something else which is really going on, which is being driven towards a higher and more holistic incorporation, right, of elements. This I believe the reason I think that what we're learning is so timely is because part of it is because of Yaakov Avinu's ability to access the realm of dreaming, the realm of awareness and awareness of self, which in the image of the latter becomes probably the best symbol of that kind of a incorporative and nested levels in which you go higher and higher on the ladder, built of the the steps along the way, but those steps along the way never disintegrating, but rather remaining integrated in that ladder which is climbed up and down to a point from which the perspective can be so incorporative and inclusive that Yaakov Avinu really becomes the image ultimately of shalom. I mean, we have like in the Tehillim, Padav Shalom Nafshi, right? Mikravli, that ultimately is really a song of Yaakov, and a teaching about the ultimate access to the world of shalom, right, which he leads towards. But what's fascinating in this then is that the ground drive is one towards shalom. The ground reality is one towards shalom, and it takes being a choresh on some level to create medanim. Now it's true in social context, right? It's surprising to see him say that. I mean, what do you mean? I mean, people fight because people fight. You don't need someone to.
No, for the groundwork has already been done for us.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
I mean, our societies have been built on that. I mean, you could say that the ultimate groundwork was done, as we've spoken about so many times, when Adam and Chava ate from the fruit and chose the world of distinctions as the way I know is through distinguishing, as opposed to the way I know is through integration.
Right, and creating a context for Cain and Hevel, and all the disintegration.
But that's every moment. In other words, that Adam's choice is in every moment. It's not.
Right. Well, we're not Christians. We don't believe that it's
not
irreversible.
way back. It's not way back, and we're drawn from that. It's every moment we are in that process.
We're participating in the process.
Yeah, and every moment we have that decision to make.
Right, exactly.
So it's not the groundwork that's being done for us; it's that we are participating in that groundwork.
Well, they're both true. They're both true. I mean, the context we're operating in is not born anew every minute.
And insofar as a person lives a conscious life, in every decision is the difference between those two. Either the groundwork has been done for us because we're not living a conscious life and we're just floating around, or we seize hold of our consciousness and realize, wow, in this moment I can live in that, or I can live in this.
Yeah, totally.
It can be different.
Totally that way. Right. Totally that way. And on a certain level, this in a way optimistic perspective is very empowering because what you're being told, just like we were told by the Rambam about simcha, that it's the person who's monea atzmo mina simcha sheraui lipara mimenu. People, those who are choosing to not be happy, are also sharing with those who are choosing to create dissonance that choice. And the empowerment is that it not only does it not have to be that way, but the truth of the tendency of creation is towards integration and harmonization of elements, and not towards their disintegration. I mean, these are perspectives taken, and they're either one of them is equally defensible. Are we in an entropic universe? Are we in an expanding and ever more inclusive universe? Is evolution a process of competition that destroys those who are unable to survive, or is evolution an ever more inclusive and integrative power of movement towards wholeness? It's a matter of the stance you take.
Yeah.
So there's a stance here that's being taken. Right? There's a stance here that's being taken. Yeah.
I feel like Michael really put his finger on the critical piece in terms of what evolution offers, which is it really depends on where you draw the system boundary. If one lives one's own life as a discrete element, then so much of the context within which we live is clearly competition, and there's a zero sum, and et cetera, right? But if one begins to expand, and I think that's the appeal of things like community or nation or tribal, like there's an opportunity to feel that even though I myself, why are people willing to sacrifice for the greater good? I mean, isn't that the same competition? No, it's because there's a perception that even though I lose, we gain. Right. And so where that boundary of the we is, right, in terms of unity of consciousness, is really, I think, a primary shift there.
Yeah.
I was going to say, the closer in you draw the boundary,
right,
the more midanim there are, the more machloket arises.
You're not in competition with the flora and fauna of your gut for food.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't look at it that way because you'd realize that would be a destructive competition.
Even though you could draw the boundaries of the system.
Oh, you could. This is a foreign element.
As
you
between
know?
you and those bacteria
Right.
that are.
In fact, that's what a lot of modern medicine does.
A lot of source of a lot of disease.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. That even just the inner posture of like
There are all these invaders. I've got to
Yep.
blitz them with antibiotics.
yeah.
Literally and metaphorically.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I mean, there isn't. I mean, there are the antibiotics are directed at the ones that are genuinely harming you, but they happen also to kill the ones that are part
I
of
was
No, but-
referring to
but
them
I'm
and how it
thinking
becomes
of-
out of balance in the first place.
Yeah, and I was actually thinking more about the paradigm.
Okay.
Like the paradigms that, okay, I am a sovereign body, and a hermetically, or there's anything that penetrates the bodily envelope is an invader and has to be destroyed.
It's like brownfield agriculture.
Right.
That's
Right.
that's what we
Mhm.
practice.
Mhm.
Brownfield agriculture. Kill it all, and then you can actually grow things.
Well, as they said in the Alexandrian crusade, you kill them all, let God bless them.
Sort of that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Not Christians.
So there's definitely a stance being taken here, right? That those who are chorshei ra, they have to be choresh in order to produce the ra. V'yesh b'libam mirma, ki im ein osim b'mirma, einam yocholim ligmor ma'asehim. Now, let's see. He's going to give something of a pragmatic approach to these chorshei ra. שיחשבו בני אדם, כי באולי עושה בשביל שנאה שיש לו על האחד, ולכך הוא עושה במרמה, עד שיוכל לשלוח מדנים. In other words, he's always going to have to, in order to accomplish his purposes, he's always going to have to do it surreptitiously, and that's because people will assume that if he's speaking against someone or acting against someone or creating this dissonance, that is probably rooted in something personal. And so it's always going to have to be couched in something universal. It's like just like Lavan does. I mean, we would do something like that. Put the tzira b'fnei habechira.
We just don't do that.
So in other words, it's built on a distortion of the real intention, which is for personal advantage. In other words, so there's going to have to be a pretending that's going to be involved. That's on one level, but I think on a more profound level, and perhaps that's present here, perhaps not, but on a profound level, like we've been saying, the element of nirma that's in the heart of the chorshei ra is that on a deep level, he's going to have to be in some way lying to himself. He's going to have to in some way be lying to himself because the attitude and the activity of Harishas Ra is not an accurate depiction of the nature of what the real ground of existence is. Because the real ground of existence is one in which different realities, different life forms, different elements are in a harmonious and integrated relationship. So he's really living a lie, and one of the deepest lies he's living about is the lie about himself, like we were describing before, about his own construct of his self and identity, of his body. I have a sense that the bracha of Asher Yatzar is like such a deep, yes, it's such a deep awakening to Asher Yatzar Ta'adam b'chokhmah.
Which is an inclusive.
Yeah, chokhmah, which is that, but and beyond that, the nikavim, chalulim, the doubling of the language, which I believe, I have not seen this as a perush, but it strikes me as very strongly the case that there's nikavim, chalulim in the double, because you are giving out and you're taking in.
Of course, doubling a name is Lashon Kippah.
Okay, you're giving out and you're taking in, which is I would say the first meditation of the morning. which is, in breathing out, I'm providing life forms that are in need of what it is now that I'm exuding. In breathing in, I'm taking in that which they have provided. In evacuating, I am fertilizing the ground from which I have been taken and from which I have eaten. And then in taking in, I am now participating in the wealth, which is a product of that circular system. So that nikavim, chalulim emphasize the dual nature of that interchange and that interpenetration. We've lost so much of that. I'm going to the bathroom in
As
a
you're
toilet.
saying it, I'm thinking about
Yeah, mamish, you know the difference between going to the bathroom in a toilet and going to the bathroom in a field. I mean, it's an entirely different consciousness of relationship with the earth. And this is like, it's waste and needs to be done away with when it's in the toilet, as opposed to its fertilizer, which is now going to participate in the earth's upcoming growth.
Which may be why it's so traumatizing for young children. Like,
Toilet training.
yes,
Because it's so
it's
unnatural.
so natural. So like something coming my body is waste,
Totally.
and that's and then some as well. I came up with body, so maybe I'm waste. So.
There's a
I hear that. The pain in that of the self description that comes of going to the bathroom. I mean, yeah. and therefore, and by the very same token, right, that comes of eating. Eating, instead of becoming being a transfer point in a ever more broadened cycle, eating becomes the most selfish and
Self-referential.
self-involved, centered activity, as opposed because the waste that comes of it is not reincorporated into the reality from which it came.
I mean, at this stage, it's even worse than that. Is that we've so managed to attenuate the relationship to the planet on both ends of disposal and consumption that it's eating is reflective of like wheels within wheels that we've created about our perceptions of ourselves. Like much of the eating that we do is actually not healthy.
Right.
And it is responsive to certain pleasures and desires in all power systems, and on both ends. There's a really, by the way, I think a very foundational text for this in Western culture is in Les Miserables. He has, I don't know if you've ever read the book, but he has an element of social commentary that runs through the whole book, and there's a description of the sewers of Paris, which play a certain role.
There it is.
And he talks about the sewers as sucking the wealth of France out and basically just flushing it out to the sea through the river. And
The wealth.
Yeah, the wealth of the land. I mean, and so the city is a very important that desire to like concentrate power in humanity gone awry.
Right.
And I just think about Migdal Babel,
it
is expressive in its most basic element of the need to break that cycle, because you can't bring that many people together.
Right.
And
make use.
Make use of it. I'm having a very funny
waste.
memory of the first time I came back from the backcountry for 21 days, and telling my parents that I was going to use the backyard as a bathroom, and my father simply pointing out to me like, you can't do that in suburbia, which is true. I mean, it wasn't just like that's not proper. No, it's actually true, because we know what happens.
It's damaging.
Concentration of population doesn't allow it.
It breeds illness.
Yeah.
This is so powerful in the context of cities, because the first city was not Migdal Babel. The first city was built by Cain.
Right.
Well, it was built by Cain for his son
But
Hanoch. But it was built by Cain. In other words, there's an origin in that kind of selfish and jealous acquisition, which leads to the city.
You can also add that Cain's told us to be nad, meaning God tells him you're supposed to wander. That it's going to be good for you.
That somehow that will be your tikkun.
He says no. I'm going to build a city.
Right.
So I'm wondering.
He builds it in Eretz Nod. The Ramban says that the city itself was never really stable.
Built in sand.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm wondering, how do we get from there to a holy city?
Yeah.
Like think about Yerushalayim.
That's right.
Look at sort of what happens to waste from Yerushalayim. It all goes to Abu Dis, or it goes down that pipeline which goes past the Ain Karen,
Right.
and
The traffic.
and the traffic and the I mean, is it possible?
I think that's
it's hard to imagine there being a holy city, and yet we're required.
I think, you know what I think it is that like we were speaking about even in the pratiyut of there needs to be a malchut that is able to make decisions with a vision of what, I mean, because the truth is, especially with the technology at our disposal, pun intended, right? The waste of a city could still be
Definitely.
I mean, Tenochtitlan was like at a certain point in history.
Mhm.
An example, like floating gardens and human waste and questions of transport, questions of how you manage, civil discourse. I mean, I think but it needs, and why do I say malchut? Not just because of like that's my thing, but because it relates to the shalom we're speaking about. Someone has to be able to hold that context
integrate all the elements.
they can integrate the elements in
Right.
their proper relation without, and you said the most important thing I think in the Sulam is that all the attempts at Malchut in humanity up to now have been with the Tishtush of the Yachid. Right? There's been a need to think of what the communist world tried to do.
Right.
It's like, you just need to reduce yourself to a cog in this bigger system and believe that the bigger system is, whereas humanity is always kind of rubbed up against that. Whereas somehow there has to be a vision that says, no, the goal here is to integrate the fullness of each individual.
And also, a system is not a closed system. So it's a dynamic equilibrium.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a constant system. Does not mean something that is like static.
No, never mind.
Right. Well, that is a very particular image of Malchut.
That was the Migdal Bavel distortion that they tried to solidify things.
Well,
Right.
and vortex is the language that we've thrown around here
That's
before. As complexity that emerges from an open system. Because as long as energy is flowing through it, you can have a tremendously complex structure. But as soon as it closes, it's gone.
Yeah, that's such a powerful image of a continued participation in what's exterior to the system and what's interior to it, and as those are in a constant flow of interchange, which is really become the narrative of the universe. In just in the physical universe, in the current picture of things, that basically that's what we are, is a vortex of waves of energy that have bound together for a very, very brief amount of time in the geological history of the universe, our lives. But it's like it's a meeting of energies that itself maintains this very, very dynamic character to it, but because of the dynamism of the character, so it's able to hold it together as an ever more integrative system and continue to move forward. This is really the power of something else that we've been looking at, which is the idea of a world being created with an open letter. Right? That's like a description of the nature of what this reality is. That system that's open-ended. The Hay being the letter of Malchut, which is an amazing thing. I mean, it could have been a Mem Sofi.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a Mem Sofi.
Or even a Yud.
Or even a Yud. But rather, Yud is the Olam Haba, and it's pristine, closed, but closed simplicity, as opposed to the Hay, which is the most open of the letters. The most open of the letters. It's an incredible insight, Chazal, and it's like mamish, exactly what Bihi Bar'am then describes, is that kind of unfurling creation. So all of these are elements to this sense of but really being a mirma. You really have to be lying to yourself in order to view reality in a way in which the charishat hara is where your advantage is going to be. I mean, it will be in the very, very local sense.
You can construct the
local
world
sense. Yeah. And I'd like Michael put it before, it's a matter of where you put the boundaries of your perspective on the system. And in the local sense, you stand to gain a lot by being a choresh ra. I mean, you'll be up on the top, for at least a bit.
A moment, an infinitesimal moment.
But that
And
goes,
maybe not even that.
that connects right to the body-soul division, because the reality is what do you mean for a moment? If I'm going to live my life, I don't know if you've ever engaged with, we went as an environmental geology group to the Cripple Creek mine in Colorado, where they've reopened the Cripple Creek mine, and they're doing cyanide washing on the tailings of the original mine, which is one of the richest mines in the Colorado Gold Rush. So here we are, a group of environmentalists who've been testing the water outruns from this mine. We're challenging the mine manager. He's up there literally in snakeskin cowboy boots, and like the mamish, he looked the part. And he started off, he knew who we were and why we were there. He started, what we do here is make money. And money makes the world go round. And anybody who's telling you anything else is lying. That's how he started. So,
Wow.
well, where are you going to go with that? You're going to start arguing about, oh, the world could be a better place, and what about all these people in the environment? Is it? You're not sharing the value system. He's like,
Whatever you're going to say is going to take a lot more words
than
than that.
what?
Whatever you're going to say is going to take a lot more words than that.
Yeah, and not only that, but in the end of the day, he's going to laugh his way right back to his house with his security system and his bank, and that. So it might look like in some values judgment a brief period of time. But his point is, I don't share your values, so this is my life. This is it. Yeah.
Right.
So.
And from that perspective, if you're not climbing the ladder, then that is, of course, that's exactly what it looks
If
like.
you're not climbing ladder and pulling it up after you.
Right. You climb a ladder by stepping on people. That's the point.
Well, I didn't mean that. I meant Yaakov's ladder.
Oh, okay.
You see where it went right there.
Yeah.
But Yaakov's ladder, and that I think is part of the power of Yaakov's ladder being envisioned in sleep and in a dream. Because one of the other timely elements of our learning this now in Kislev is that Kislev is the month of sleep, which is really what I wanted to do this morning.
Oh
my gosh! But each of the months has a chush, right? Whether it be chush re'ah, chush ta'am, chush re'iyah, chush, all kinds of. There's 12 chushim, and the chush of Chodesh Kislev is sleep. So, which is an amazing thing. First of all, I just want to say, therefore you can sleep guiltlessly, because it's also a chush that you develop.
Yes.
So actually sleep is an opposite.
Sleep is a chush, and right, exactly, to develop that sensitivity to sleep. Besides the fact that the parshiot are the most sleep-oriented parshiot of the Chumash. You have Yaakov Avinu going to sleep. We pointed out sleeping and dreaming, and then you have him sleeping again in not only in Vayetze, in Vayetze twice, and then in Vayishlach. He goes to sleep
He doesn't go to sleep.
Doesn't go to sleep,
right?
right?
Up all night.
But then Vayeshev, we're back.
Okay.
But then in Vayeshev, we're back to Yosef in his sleep and his dreams.
Everybody's sleeping.
I mean, this is mamish through Kislev. This is really what we're going to be working with. And wait, just want to. So it was what we're going to be working with, and that itself is I believe, very telling to the nature of the ladder, because one of the elements of sleep is exactly, I believe, one of the most demonstrative of what we've been describing as where evolution tends. Because if you think about it, the circadian rhythm of going to sleep is actually one of the most problematic issues in a survivalist orientation. Because the most dangerous time for you is when you're asleep.
That's why dogs.
That's why Aesop can't sleep.
Okay, wait. Let me just say something out first, right before you throw me in all the other pieces. But in other words, for the development of a survival-oriented world, the fact of sleep is one of the deepest problematics, and you would think that it would be the piece that evolutionary process would get rid of. I mean, why? I mean, it could have developed some kind of a genetic power that would enable you to be absorbing the energy you need rather than by going to sleep, but by some other method.
Certainly no other
So
species.
wait,
that
just
can
let me
need
just
to
let me
deep
just
sleep.
wait. Let me
Yeah.
just talk now for a couple of minutes. So the elements of a reality that continues to maintain the power of sleep is itself the indication of a reality which is oriented towards shalom. And what I mean by that is that that in a reality which continues to insist on the vulnerability of sleep, is to be discovered the element which is the aspect of reality which continues to foster an experience of shalom, and an experience of shalom which is built on the vulnerability of the creature. And this continues to be the way in which we describe intimacy. We describe intimacy not as a euphemism, but as it really just needs to give me a couple of minutes here because I'm like a little bit also tired, and so everything you say will become part of not necessarily what was going to be my train of thought, but the element of sleep as being the expression for intimacy then becomes a description far beyond just that being something which is describing what it means to sleep together and to be together, but to describe the nature of reality itself. And this, I believe, is one of the besides being one of the crucial moments of Vayetze, when Yaakov goes to sleep, which is what Chazal make a big thing out of this. I mean, he actually had never gone to sleep until now. I mean, he'd been awake. His ability to go to sleep is to introduce the ladder, because the difference between a ladder which is seen in sleep and a ladder which is seen when you're awake is exactly the difference you described before. There's a ladder when you're awake, which is what's stepping on people as you get up, as you climb up the corporate ladder. But the ladder which you see in sleep is not that ladder at all. The ladder which you see in sleep is a ladder which is going to offer you an ever more broad perspective on the reality in which you live. And so one of the most beautiful experiences, I think, one of the sweetest experiences that we have, right, of arva shnatecha, which the Medrash actually brings that pasuk at the beginning of the Medrash in this week's parsha, right? It's like az telech levetach, etc. Arva shnatecha, that the v'lo tifchad, don't be afraid. That there's because your experience of reality is one of I can let go. Because the natural condition really is a condition of being b'shalom. We actually say this in Birkat HaMapil, right? Where part of the bracha is to describe that we should be able to be sleeping b'shalom. So that then, yeah. What's that? Shalom. Okay, now I'm open to. Okay, good. Fine. So, but I think that's a very telling about the nature of evolutionary process, and it's precisely the opposite, as we pointed out in the past. We're not going to explore that right now so much, but very, very much the opposite of an Esavian orientation, which in which sleep is a bother, as opposed to an opportunity to reconnect, and frightening. So Esav is tired. Esav does not go to sleep. But when he comes in and he's tired, so why doesn't he just go to sleep? Instead, he's tired, and so he's hungry, which I think we experience that. Like people, when you get tired, you start getting hungry. Why are you getting hungry when you're tired? Why don't you just go to sleep? Because what happens is you're afraid to go to sleep, and so you need to start imbibing more energy to keep yourself awake.
And your internal sense of what kinds of food also you need.
You end up choosing. You end up choosing
you
end up choosing things which wake you up. Salty things, sweet things, like what? Caffeinated things. Okay, whatever. That's already that's usually that's a mechushab thing. but I think the natural tendency is actually when you're tired is to start eating the junk.
I do want to just reflect back to you. One element of this is that for me was so powerful when we first began to explore it, which is that at the root, the difference between Esav and Yaakov is that Yaakov is able to believe that he has the emunah that when he goes to sleep that he'll wake up again.
Right.
That which is it sounds obvious, but then when you begin to think about it, you say, well, wait a minute. Actually, if I come from a experience of my existence, which is my existence is the only proof of my existence.
Right.
That's it. My existence is the only proof of my existence.
And letting go of that.
Then going to sleep is terrifying because there's really no reason to believe that.
Yeah.
That once it shuts off, Whereas if your existence is embedded in,
right, so to speak,
from the beginning in something larger than going to sleep. Okay, there's shifts and but and that's really in the end of the day the fundamental split between Esav and Yaakov.
Yeah.
So there's actually even we can even go deeper than that, and actually tie it back to the first part of the discussion. So there is an interesting discussion of Dafka sort of the question of what is the evolution of versus sleep, but the biologists looking specifically at the evolutionary purpose of the very, very deep sleep that happens after the dream cycle, when one is as close to death as one will ever be. Basically, everything's shut down, and they think, okay, that's just dangerous from an evolutionary perspective. And they're saying they realize that this is actually about waste disposal, and apparently there's like waste that the build up in the brain from thought processes, and when one is in this very deep during this very deep sleep, that's actually when it is flushed out of the brain. And
the brain needs to completely shut down.
And they actually hypothesize that part of what may lead into things like Alzheimer's, in fact, is that people don't have this deep sleep, don't do enough of this deep sleep. There's like an accumulation of plaques that otherwise would be flushed out.
Okay, interesting. Bringing us back to the question of waste disposal, right?
Yes.
The other direction I wanted to point out is that where he sleeps is actually the place where the holy city is established. In other words, Ir HaKodesh
is the city of sleep.
Is the city of sleep, and it literally is so. I mean, it's a mitzvah to sleep in Yerushalayim. It's the only city in the world where it's a mitzvah to sleep there. So much that HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls it Beit Maloni. This tzaddik has come through my Beit Malon, my Beit Malon, and he doesn't go to sleep. So there's a mitzvah when you come to Yerushalayim. Part of the Aliyah L'Regel is to sleep there. Anytime you bring a korban, you have to sleep in Yerushalayim. There's a mitzvah to sleep. Why do you have to sleep in Yerushalayim? Because that's part of the process of. First of all, there are a few elements here which need to be divided out. But first of all, it's part of Kedusha. The nature of an Ir HaKodesh is exactly two opposites, because Ir is a lashon of being awake, being air. Air, lihit orer, is an Ir. Yes, the city that never sleeps. Cities don't sleep. Cities don't sleep. Anyone, you go to a sleepy village.
Yeah, it's small town.
There's a sleepy village. There's no such thing as a sleepy city. It's not a sleepy city because it's an ear. So it's defined by being awake. But so to have a mitzvah to go to sleep in an ear, I believe is the reflection of Kodesh, because the nature of Kodesh is integrative property of developing a this world which is open in an aperture to a much more vast vision, which is able to incorporate the local, actually be discovered through the local, as we've explored like in many different ways from this parsha, right? Only through the local can you discover that vast vision, which is the picture of the ladder. So if you're going to come to Yerushalayim and stay awake, you're going to miss what Yerushalayim offers as an Ir HaKodesh. You might get what Yerushalayim has to offer as an Ir. It's like you'll go out. There's like there's this happening and that happening. Like my daughter's telling me, she's come to this. Wow, it's like there's always something happening, and there is always something happening. But that's exactly what makes it a secular city, is that there's always something happening. If it were, imagine a city that actually would rest and go to sleep. I mean, it's an amazing thing. We spent we spent Shabbat in this like hotel Sharei Yerushalayim, which is Mamash at Sharei Yerushalayim, and like wake up Shabbos morning, it's like one of the busiest intersections in the country, and it's dead quiet. It only starts later, the cabs and this and that, but it's like, it's an amazing thing. Like there's actually like a city goes to sleep, and people, the Tel Avivians talk about Yerushalayim. It's like the city that never sleeps is Tel Aviv. It's not Yerushalayim, and not at least it used to be. But that idea of like yes, you have to come to the city, but you have to go to sleep there. I think is reflective of this kind of an ability to to be in something very local and present in that awake state, and then to let go and be completely vulnerable, making yourself available to the higher order levels of reality, which are vastly integrative, right? That's where the ladder is. That ladder being, depending on the shita, right? But having to do with Makom, having to do with Makom HaMikdash.
So it's a ladder.
Yeah.
I think you can go even deeper with this, because if we think about how like Chava is created,
Absolutely.
Like, the whole idea comes out when he's in like a sleep state.
Absolutely.
You can even say deeper that like part of the sense of like the evolutionary sense, like why it hasn't sleep been like removed, is that it's in the sleep state you kind of get to reset the whole cycle. You then can wake up again. Since you wake up, you're like, okay, yesterday's gone. Now we can like start the new day fresh. Somehow like there's a sense of we want to get back to that state of like harmony. So built into our system is a way to say, okay, stop all the machlok, the system, go to sleep. It kind of clears the system, wake up the next morning. Okay.
It's more than that. Sleep is integrative in the sense that there are things that somehow can only occur to you after you've slept. Okay, let's sleep on that, because the mind does things during sleep.
There's also a deep social aspect in this playing into the city, is that if the human being were truly a isolated animal, then sleep on that level would be inevitably dangerous. But the reality is, human being is a social animal, and therefore the need for sleep ties into a whole communal existence.
Right.
It's like in theory, is if we can all get our
Trust
sleep,
and
It requires it.
interdependency.
Right. It requires it.
The Yaakov's sleep is mamash when he's.
No question. I'm not in
Okay, because Yaakov's sleep is really a sleep that's in a place of kodesh, which is what he wakes up to discover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that place of kodesh is where you don't need to be a social creature in order to be protected. You're protected by the universe, which you are a part of.
Right, you're integrated into the wholeness.
The 12 stones are integrated into.
Well, that's exactly what happens there.
Yeah.
Right? That's what happens there.
Or the whole earth is folded up underneath him, unified.
So you can see now also why Yaakov as being an ish tam, and I think we explored a lot of this when we were learning the Netiv Tamimut, right? That Yaakov's being an ish tam is very much related to his ability to go to sleep, because the meaning of tam is to be shalem. It's the precise opposite of being being a mirma, as Rashi says it on the pasuk. Rashi explains that the nature of him being an ish tam yoshev ohalim is that he doesn't know the ways of mirma, which obviously in terms of the narrative like raises all kinds of questions, because after all Yitzchak Avinu says ba'achicha b'mirma, but nevertheless Rashi, when he defines what it means to be a tam, is describing but he's describing the essential element of Yaakov, and that essential element is also what enables him to go to sleep, because he's a shalem. But to be a shalem is to be an ish shalom ultimately. So pada b'shalom nafshi, which again is which are psukim about Yaakov, whose brother came against him b'milchama, which is also reflected in that power, and therefore the opposite of the mirma personality. That because I'll put it like this, the mirma personality is always on guard, because he's always protecting the lie that he's seeking to generate. So he'll always be a choresh. He's constantly being choresh, right? The idea of being a collaborator also has to do with like being a choresh,
A conspirator?
a conspirator, right? A secret Like the idea of plowing and keeping a secret. It's very interesting, how those are related. But l'maaseh, the personality of someone who can't go to sleep is always going to be involved in trying to maintain the lie, And so someone who's merameh can never go to sleep because he can never leave himself vulnerable to being discovered. In the nature of his personality, right? Not necessarily in the physical issue of being able to go to sleep, right? In the nature of personality, he'll be constantly being choresh, and that will deny him ever having the experience of shalom. I mean, you see this, in the all kinds of horrible things that,
But I think we all have trouble with sleep.
And I wonder, I agree with you. I really do, on the personal level too. And I wonder how much of that is, is being.
Well, I have trouble with sleep.
Being part of, and they said, no, I think many people do. And it's a question like how much that, I mean, it's clear, I think it's pretty clear that how much that has to do with an attitude towards life, built on accomplishment, built on standards set. Right. Speak. As opposed to the sense that like the primal reality is integrative. If that's what you're seeking, so then it's much easier to go to sleep. If what you're looking for is integration, then if what you're looking for is to stand out and to achieve. I mean, that's like obvious. It's like,
to me, it's a question of whether it's about a way of being or what I'm doing. Because I know for a fact that a few more hours will allow me to accomplish more things, but that I'm not going to be the way I want to be in the morning when I go up after 5 hours of bad sleep. Whereas if I actually let myself prepare for sleep and sleep 8 hours every night and get up, my way of being in any given interaction would be much closer to how I want to be. But I have a judgment but I wouldn't be doing all the things that I want to do, and I think that's on some level. That's the question of how you define yourself. That's the Asavian voice there of why I define myself by my accomplishments.
That's right.
Quantity versus quality.
I don't even know if it's
not only quantity and quality.
It's something an inner state, which is what to me what is so much of we've spoken about, right? As opposed to what I accomplish outside myself.
And what I'm suggesting is that the difference in the stance is an orientation which is integrative, as opposed to an orientation which is to be outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way Mike you described earlier so beautifully the nature of Malchut Yisrael as being integrative of the individual and unique properties of the individuals and their specificity.
Mm-hmm.
When they are joined, when that overarching vision is joined together with that. The admiration and the preciousness of the uniqueness of the individual, you really end up with a city that's able to go to sleep. You end up with a city that's able to go to sleep because you end up with a city that is able to find the right balance, because the overarching vision of leadership is incorporative enough to know me as part of the whole, and to endear me as being a specific expression within that whole. It's mamish like Ir HaKodesh is to have a mitzvahs lina is like it's exactly this, and it leaves out the world of mirma and charishas hara, right? And creates a foundation for a world of shalom.
The evolution from Yaakov, where Avram sees a har and Yitzchak has a sadeh, and Yaakov actually
has a bayit,
not just house but home, a place to rest.
Yeah. It occurs to me the others.
Yeah, by the way, that's very important. I think we once explored this about Yaakov and being the bayit and mitzvah sukkah. Ironically, right? I mean, everyone falls asleep outside of the house. No. But the definition of home is where you sleep. Mm-hmm. That's why Shenat Arai is usher outside the sukkah. As opposed to Achilas Arai. You eat in all kinds of places, but you sleep at home. Come on, I don't only sleep at home. No. The definition of home is sleep. And therefore the sleep has to be in the sukkah. Because of that integrative power of what sleep is, not just because it's a safe place, but because that's a description of what a bayit is.
Again, that language problem is like what I did on the bus today was not sleep.
That's right.
You napped.
It was resting.
Dozed.
No, it was
It
resting.
was resting because you were tired.
But it wasn't sleep in the sense that
No.
I'm going to shift into a different mode.
No, it's not. It's not that same regenerative and incorporative power sleep has. That you can only do that at home or in a beit malon, or in
Place that is set up to have the comfort.
set
of
up for
home, right.
lina.
The other structure that goes along the ladder is the arch. Some good structural stones, they actually form an arch.
Oh, okay. So we didn't finish the first.
But we made progress.
Very, very profound progress. Now we can go to sleep.
I've been wondering about Yaakov's ability to sleep is inherently tied up with his ability to be open and be
Yep.
what we would consider vulnerable.
That's right.
So it's very telling that he uses the word vayifga b'makom. That it's but it's actually a two-way street. That the